for the 5th Conference of the Parties to the Minamata Convention on Mercury. I'm very glad that we have such a strong turnout. I'm Mary Ann Bailey with the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention, and I'm joined today by many of my colleagues here at the Secretariat. Your host for this webinar is Sharaful Islam, and technical support is provided by Pablo Garmon. And you can find how to reach Pablo in the chat here. And please feel free to make full use of the chat. But let me explain a bit how we're going to undertake this briefing. We have one briefing today and another briefing tomorrow. The documents, so the topics, are split between the 2 days. So each of the 2 days has a different set of topics to be covered. These are not presented in the order that they will be taken up by the COP. They're not in the order that they're presented in the provisional agenda, but they are divided this way, partly due to availability of various members of our very busy Secretariat staff. So we hope that this order of topics works well for you. But please know that we will post this presentation on our website following today's briefing, and you will also be able to find it on the Minamata Convention YouTube channel. So for this briefing, we will open the floor for a brief round of questions after every set of documents. And questions can be posed by asking for the floor and speaking, or they can be posed in the chat. Note that we do have a lot of information to get through in our 90 minutes today. So I will be, if needed, stepping in during those question and answer periods and moving the discussion forward if we need to move on to different topics. So please know that even if your question is not answered in that immediate time frame, we will do our best to answer all the questions, either during the presentation or by following up with you after the presentation. So in the next slide, I want to show you, again, how busy we've been at the Secretariat to prepare for COP-5. You can see that registration invitations were sent out in July, and the deadline for registrations is the 29th of September, about a month from now. So this is just the first of a series of online briefings that we will hold. And I'll recap that for you at the end of today's presentation. But just a few things of note. We will open the online budget forum for parties this Monday, where they can pose questions to the Secretariat about the program of work and budget. Then regional meetings also begin next week, and our online side events will take place the week of 9th October. So I hope you find this, this schedule and snapshot of activities useful. The COP itself takes place here in Geneva from October 30th to November 3rd, or as we say in this part of the world, 30 October to 3 November. It will be, of course, a fully in-person meeting. In the next slide, I'd like to show you our tentative schedule of work. This is the work that'll be undertaken in the plenary. The tentative schedule of work is really designed to allow maximum time for the plenary to consider and deliberate and adopt items. And in the plenary, of course, interpretation into UN languages is available. It's also designed to take into account the potential time required to meet in smaller groups on key agenda items. And in those, there's no interpretation into UN languages. It's designed to ensure that no more than one group works alongside plenary, or that only two groups work concurrently at any time that plenary is adjourned. And finally, it's designed to ensure that draft decisions are finalized in time for the program of work and budget group to consider them fully before the adoption of the budget on Friday. So this is a very time-sensitive schedule, and we really look forward to getting through all the items during the week. And in the next document, the next slide, just this is the expanded schedule of work that also includes the Sunday meetings, the day prior to the formal opening of the COP. This includes meetings of the Bureau, it includes regional meetings, and also soon we will have more information on a couple of events and a set of knowledge labs that will take place in person at the COP. We'll have that available in due course. So finally, now turning to the documents, which is what you have all tuned in here today to hear about. In the next slide, you can see how to find the documents on our website. So we have a COP-5 website that's under the decision-making tab, and you can navigate to that. And our website is also available in Spanish and French. So you can navigate to the Documents tab on that COP-5 web page. And just to give you a sense of where we stand on uploading all the documents there, the budget documents have been available since the 31st of July. And in addition, we already have a number of advanced English versions of non-budgetary documents available already, and more are being uploaded all the time. So our formal deadline for posting all the working documents in the 6 UN languages is the 18th of September. But we expect to have many or most documents available prior to the regional meetings and well in advance of that deadline. So now in the next slide, here are the documents that explain the documents. So the provisional agenda, of course, guides the COP, and it provides an overview of the agenda items to be considered and a reference guide to the documents that have been prepared for it. And then Annex 2 of the annotated agenda has the tentative schedule of work for COP-5. There is an information document, INF1, that serves as a reference guide to the documents that have been prepared per agenda item. And INF2 is a really useful document. It gives an overview of the information provided by the parties to the Minamata Convention. So this includes information on the status of ratifications, party notifications, things like Minamata initial assessments and ASGM national action plans, national reports, and other important information. And then finally, in this set of documents, we have INF 38, which is the scenario note. This sets out the proposed arrangements for how the COP will be run. And then finally, in my overview here, in the next slide, you can see the provisional agenda. This is already available in the various languages, official UN languages. And once again, this briefing today and tomorrow's briefing will not present the topics in this order. It will present them as in the order that was in the earlier slide that I showed. So with that, I'll stop here for a moment just to give you some time to look at this provisional agenda, but please know that it's already available on the website and you can navigate to that at any time. So with that, I would like to hand this over to my colleague, Lara. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne. My name is Lara Ognibene. I'm a legal officer with the Secretariat. Hello, everyone. So moving on to the substantive matters in the agenda for COP-5, on the agenda item 2C, the COP will address the issue of election of officers. The relevant document is document 5/1 at 2 with the same title. So COP-5, in accordance with the Rule 22 of the Rules of Procedure of the COP, is to elect the COP-6 Bureau. No elected officer may serve on the Bureau for more than 2 consecutive terms. To that end, the 2 nominations from each UN regional group should be submitted to the Secretariat no later than the 2nd day of COP-5. And also in accordance with the rules of procedure and past practice, for the purposes of the regional rotation, the president for COP-6 Bureau is expected to be elected from the Latin America and Caribbean states. Then the COP is also expected to elect for 2 terms 6 new members of the Implementation and Compliance Committee to replace those members whose period of office is about to expire. Again, any member or member is not to serve on the committee for more than 2 consecutive terms. Again, nominations from each UN regional group should be submitted to the Secretariat no later than the 2nd day of COP-5. And finally, COP-5 is also to confirm, based on the nominations received from the regional groups, 10 members of the governing board of the specific international program for the following term. So the officers or the members of the board are to serve from the closure of COP-5 until the closure of COP-6. Again, no member is to serve on the board for more than 2 consecutive terms. Moving on to the next slide, which will be on credentials. This will be discussed on the agenda item 2D. Here we'll just give you a brief overview of on how to submit credentials. Credentials for the head of delegation, alternate representatives and advisors are to be issued by either the head of state or government or by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Obviously, this applies to parties to the convention only. Samples of credentials are available on our COP-5 webpage in all 6 UN languages, so you can make use of those samples for your guidance in drafting the credentials. Original credentials must be submitted to the Secretariat no later than 24 hours after the opening of the meeting. That will be on Tuesday, 31st of October. Parties are invited to submit their original credentials in advance. They can send them to the office of the Secretariat, and here you have the address in Geneva where you can send the originals to if you wish. Otherwise, the original copies can also be submitted at the registration desk in Geneva upon your arrival at the venue on the first day of the meeting. You can also share with us advanced copies of the credentials so that we can check if everything is in order and send us an electronic copy to the Secretariat's email address you see on the slide, mea-minamata-meetings@un.org. The credentials report is expected to be adopted in plenary on Thursday morning. Thank you very much. I hand over to my colleague, Richard.
Thank you, Lara. I'm Richard Gutierrez. I'm the Program Management Officer for National Reporting. So today I will be covering the item 4J on national reporting and present to you the documents related therein. I invite your attention to the left of your screen. You will find the three main working documents for this agenda item. We have 5/15 national reporting, Article 21, 5/15 add 1 proposed amendments to the reporting format, and 5/15 add 2 draft guidance for completing the national reporting format for the Minamata Convention on Mercury. We have 2 additional INF documents, which I will cover shortly. For now, I would like to invite your attention to focus on the main part of the slide, which is on 5/15. This document is composed of 6 sections. The substantive section starts from section 2 onwards. On section 2 of the document, you will find the Secretariat's periodic report. You will note the discussion on the Secretariat's periodic report to the Conference of Parties based on the information received pursuant to Articles 15 and 21 and other available information. In section 3 of the note, you will find the discussion on proposed amendments to the reporting format. On section 4, draft reporting guidance. On section 5, the activities of the Secretariat to support the submissions of the short reports covering the period 1 January 2021 to December 31, 2022. And section 6 contains the proposed action. Note that the annex of the document contains a proposed decision on the national reporting pursuant to Article 21. Next slide, please. Thank you. Here, we discuss 5/15 add 1, which is the proposed amendments to the reporting format. The document contains the proposed amendments to the reporting format based on the following areas. Decision MC 4/3, wherein the COP requested the Secretariat to provide draft text on the revised reporting format to enable collection of information on the measures taken relevant to the amendment to Annex A. Decision MC 4/8, the COP requested the Secretariat to reflect clarifications made to the reporting format, specifically on questions 3.1 and 3.5. Also, the proposed related clarifications as appropriate to the reporting format on the basis of the parties' experience in completing the first full report. And third, additional proposals to amend the reporting format pursuant to paragraph 6B of the decision. The document also contains recommendations on the reporting format coming from the Implementation and Compliance Committee. The details of these recommendations will be covered by my colleague Lara in the following section on the Implementation and Compliance Committee. Next slide, please. I forgot to call your attention on the first slide that I presented. You will note on the bottom left corner of the screen, my apologies for that. You would probably have noticed it. The 95% reporting rate for the first full national report as of July 15, 2023. The following slide contains the regional breakdown. And here on this slide to your bottom left, you will find the 97% rate in terms of the designation of national focal points thus far. Going back into the description of the documents, we have 5/15 add 2 on the draft guidance. The addendum contains comments received and observations from parties and stakeholders, and also from the Implementation and Compliance Committee in its consideration of the parties' responses to the first full national report. The result of the work is contained in the version of the draft reporting guidance in the annex to the document. Next slide, please. On this slide, we cover the 2 INF documents related to this topic, to this agenda topic, and the more critical one would be INF 20, which contains the Secretariat's report on the first full national reports under Article 21. And you will note that the key findings in INF 20 generally can be grouped into several categories. These are those findings based on the indicated progress of parties' implementation of the convention, the notable issues shared by parties in their reports, status of meeting the convention deadlines, challenges faced in the implementation of the convention, and lastly, parties' feedback on the reporting format and online reporting tool. I believe with that, I end my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and I pass on the mic to my colleague, Lara. Lara.
So moving on to Implementation and Compliance Committee, the relevant documents are document 14, report on the work of the ICC, and document 19, which contains the reports of the 4th and 5th meetings of the ICC. The ICC will be considered under agenda item 4G by COP-5. So the document 14 provides information on the meetings of the committee during the intersessional period between COP4 and COP5, namely 2 meetings that took place, ICC 4, so the 4th meeting of the ICC, and ICC 5, which was an in-person meeting during the year of 2022 and 2023, so this year respectively. During these 2 meetings, the ICC examined issues related to the implementation of and compliance with provisions of the Convention based on the first full national reports submitted by parties in accordance with Article 21, as you just heard from Richard. The Secretariat presented to the committee its findings on the responses submitted by parties on the 43 questions of the full reports. Based on this report by the Secretariat and also based on the committee's considerations, the committee agreed on a set of conclusions and recommendations for consideration by COP-5 on a number of articles, including control measures and enabling measures. You see the list here, articles 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, and 19. You will find a list of all these recommendations in section A of the annex to the document 15. During the meeting, also, the committee considered issues related to its program of work between COP-5 and COP-6 and venue and date of the next meetings of the committee in 2024 and 25. Next slide, please. Yes, so regarding the recommendations that were agreed upon by the committee for consideration by COP-5, these recommendations have also been included depending on their relevance to specific agenda items in working documents under the following agenda items. So we have some recommendations included under national reporting to be considered under agenda item 4J. Relevant document is document 15. Some recommendations by ICC have been integrated in the document on Mercury supply sources and trade, which will be considered under agenda item 4A. Other recommendations by the ICC were included in the document on the review of the financial mechanism to be considered on the agenda item 4G. Other recommendations were included in the document on capacity building, technical assistance, and technology transfer to be considered under agenda item 4H. And finally, some recommendations by ICC were integrated in the document on international cooperation and coordination to be considered under agenda item 5. This mapping is a bit complicated, but we will have a dedicated deep dive session on national reporting and ICC on the 8th of September, where we will give you more details on these issues and other issues related to national reporting and ICC in general. I would like to note also, finally, that the committee elected a new chair, Annick Baudouin from Canada, and a new vice chair, Musa Kuzumila Ngunila from Tanzania. Thank you. So you will see in the next slide excuse me, that the COP in the document that we just discussed on national reporting, the one Richard mentioned at the beginning, there is a proposed action included for consideration by the COP. In the document, the COP is invited to consider adopting a decision. Some key elements of this decision include the adoption of the amendments to the reporting format, a request to the Secretariat to reflect the amendments in the reporting format and in the online reporting tool, the adoption of the reporting guidance for use by parties, and also a request to the Secretariat to reflect the amendments to the reporting format as adopted in the reporting guidance. You have also here the information on the deep dive session on the 8th of September and with the time. I'm going to stop here in case you have any questions on the documents presented so far.
Laura, I do see that we have a couple of hands raised. The first is from Patricia Bora from Ecuador. Sharifu, maybe you can give her the floor.
It is a mistake. I don't know why my hand is raised. Sorry.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. No problem. And there was another hand raised from Raj. Raj, do you wish to take the floor? Okay, well, everyone should know that they can also put their questions in the chat. And yeah. Okay, great. I think we can then move on unless I'm missing anything.
Yes, let's move on then to the next slide. Apologies, I have a cough. So the next slide is on agenda item 4A, Mercury supply sources and trade. Next slide, please. So the information on this agenda item is contained in document 5/3, titled Mercury Supply Sources and Trade. The document provides information on the status of implementation of Article 3 based on the information provided in the first full national reports and also based on the work carried out by the ICC. In particular, the document provides information on some issues under Article 3, for example, informal primary mercury mining, the identification of individual stocks of mercury and mercury compounds, excess mercury from the decommissioning of chloroalkali facilities, the use of trade forms, and illegal trade under national legislation. The document also suggests some possible action for consideration by the COP based on the Secretariat's analysis of the first full national reports and also relevant recommendation by the ICC. Next slide. The document contains a proposed draft decision. In the decision, or under the decision, excuse me, the COP may, among other things, request the Secretariat to draft an update to the existing guidance on stocks, may also decide to support parties in better understanding the trade provisions and work on awareness raising activities on allowed use of and sources of mercury. Let me stop here and see if you have any questions on this document. I don't see any hands raised and or questions in the chat. I remain available in case you have any during the course of this meeting, and so I hand over to the next presenter.
Thank you, Lara. We'll now move on to item 4C, which is on artisanal and small-scale gold mining. And I will be joined in this topic by my colleague Manuela. So the first part of our document 5/6 is on implementation of Article 7 on artisanal and small-scale gold mining. And the first part of this document focuses specifically on progress that is being made with respect to submissions of national action plans for those parties who have notified the Secretariat that ASGM in their territory is more than insignificant, as well as implementation of national action plans and the review of the progress of such national action plans, the review of the progress in implementing all of Article 7 for those parties that have developed their national action plans. So there has been quite a bit of action on this article by our parties, including even since COP-4. So we have a significant increase in COP-4 of submitted national action plans. However, some of them are still late. Just a small number of them are late vis-a-vis their deadline. The deadline for submitting a national action plan for those parties who have notified is no later than 3 years after the convention entered into force for that party, or 3 years after the notification to the Secretariat, whichever is later. So that's according to Article 7, paragraph 3B. So we have already received 27 NAPs from parties, as well as 3 NAPs from non-parties. These are all posted on the convention website, and they are all listed in the INF2 document that I mentioned earlier on information provided by parties. The reviews of the progress in implementing Article 7 will become quite important. These are just starting to become due now in this time frame for those parties that already submitted their national action plan 3 years ago. And those are to be submitted along with national reports. So there's no mandatory required elements of these reviews, but they provide a really important opportunity for those parties that have national action plans to update their baselines, for example, or to assess progress against their reduction targets, and even to highlight any implementation challenges. So we talk a bit about implementation in the document 5/6. In the next slide, I want to show you also a couple of related information documents that have been developed for your use. INF6 is on information drawn from the NAP analyses that has been done and is done on an ongoing basis by the United Nations Environment Program through its role as the global knowledge management component of the GEF-funded ASGM National Action Plan projects. So it, as well as their experiences on the ground in implementing NAP projects and developing NAPs. So this interactive site that is available on the submitted NAPs has provided a lot of rich detail about these NAPs. And so we've tried to summarize that for you in this information document. And then INF7 is on technology transfer experiences from the phase 1 countries. Those are the first 8 countries taking part in the GEF-funded Planet Gold program. So we're very excited about this information document to provide a great deal of detail on technologies that have been put to use to tackle the problem of mercury use in ASGM. And with that, I'd like to pass over to Manuela, who will talk further about this topic. Thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Manuela, as Marianne introduced me. I'm part of the Secretariat and I lead our engagement with indigenous peoples and local communities, as well as on biodiversity-related matters and the effectiveness evaluation. So another component of item 4C on artisanal and small-scale gold mining is related to the needs and priorities of indigenous peoples and local communities. If you recall, there was a mandate from COP-5 for the Secretariat to gather the views on the needs and priorities of indigenous peoples and local communities with regard to the use of mercury in ASGM. To give effect to this request, the Secretariat has undertaken a number of actions and activities. One of them was the creation of the Indigenous Peoples Platform through the website of the convention. We also undertook a study to collect the views, needs, and priorities. This study was had financial support from Norway, and we would like to acknowledge that. We also had a side event last week at the Jeff Assembly in Vancouver. And we have also an upcoming meeting for indigenous organizations taking place in Brasilia. It's going to be hosted by the Brazilian government on the 4th of October. So this is a number of activities that we are taking to gather the needs and priorities of indigenous peoples and local communities. And some of the emerging conclusions from these activities is primarily that there is a range of engagement and relationships of indigenous peoples and local communities with the ASGM itself. It ranges from those who are the miners to those whose territories are being mined without their consent. And there is a range of different levels of engagement in between these two extremes. So this leads to different priorities, as well as to the need of tailored approaches that take into account the specific priorities. On the other hand, we also are identifying common needs, and these relate to better health services, the need for monitoring, to improved monitoring of levels of mercury in humans, as well as in the environment where they live, as well as the development of alternative livelihoods, sustainable livelihoods, and the engagement in planning and decision-making in relation to ASGM. And if I could have the next slide, please. We also have two accompanying information documents. These are information documents 8 and 9. The first one provides an overview of the intersectional work to map the indigenous peoples and local communities and their relationships with the ASGM, as well as their needs and priorities. Also, it highlights some possible future actions. And then we have a related information document, that's information document 9, on a technical document on how to monitor mercury in and around ASGM sites. This was conducted with an organization, scientific organization in the Amazon, but it's applicable to any ASGM site. And it also incorporates some of the needs that we identified, including to cooperate with indigenous communities, indigenous peoples, local communities, and other stakeholders throughout all the phases of the monitoring programs. With that, I think Marianne has the next slide.
Yes, so we have prepared a draft decision in the document, and the Conference of the Parties may wish to adopt a decision along those lines that would include things such as encouraging timely submission of national action plans and the reviews of the implementation, perhaps request the Global Environment Facility to provide support to parties that are undertaking their first reviews. And this would be in the context of the enabling activity funding available to eligible parties. And also to seek opportunities to advance implementation of Article 7 in the context of projects on biodiversity, land degradation, international waters, trade, so that we do begin to see some really integrated approaches to ASGM coming forward, and to continue to advance implementation of the NAPs through various projects and programs. We will have a deep dive information session on ASGM on 14th of September. For more information on this topic, including the part that I just mentioned, but now Manuela has further information about what is in the proposed action for the COP. Over to you, Manuela.
Thanks. Yes, thank you. So in the same draft decision, the COP may also wish to consider elements related to the priorities of indigenous peoples and local communities, and these relate to obtaining their free prior informed consent before ASGM activities take place in their territories, developing and promoting alternative sustainable economic activities and livelihoods, cooperation, undertaking cooperation pertaining to the international trade of mercury. And here a parenthesis is because of the study and the review of literature indicates that a lot of the mercury that's being used in ASGM does not follow the national laws for trade, the national legislation for trade of mercury. So it's a call for cooperation that the COP may wish to consider, as well as the development of supplemental guidance for the participation of indigenous peoples, local communities, and other stakeholders in the development and implementation of NAPs. If you recall, this was already called for by the COP, was an encouragement to parties to include them in the development and implementation of NAPs. So what we are putting forward now, that also came from the work that we did intersessionally, is the need for, it's a request for the Secretariat to develop that supplemental guidance. And furthermore, the continued engagement with indigenous peoples and local communities with regards to their needs and priorities. Also, a parenthesis here, we have tried as much as possible to cover, to have global coverage in our study and in the information documents that I showed, but with recognizing that in some cases it's very difficult to engage, especially local communities in some of the regions. So that's why the continued engagement is very important. And if you have any questions on the documents related to the agenda item 4C, Marianne and I are available. I see one raised hand. Mr. Michael Muzenga. Would you like to take the floor, Mr. Michael Muzenga? That doesn't seem to be possible at the moment. Yes, I was trying to unlock your microphone, but I'm not able to. If one of my colleagues could do so.
Hi, Manuela. Michael is not responding to our request to unmute.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Sharifu. So maybe if you, Michael, are you there? I see that you unlocked your microphone.
Hello. Okay.
Maybe he can come later, or Michael, if you wish also to use the chat, please go ahead. So we will continue in the interest of time. And if I could have the next slide, please. One other agenda item that we will have is agenda item 4.0, and it relates to Mercury and the COP-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. This is a fairly new topic in an agenda of COP and Minamata COPs, and the origin of this agenda item comes from decision MC4/12, where the COP requested the Secretariat to prepare reports including possible recommendations on how the Minamata Convention could contribute to the global biodiversity framework for consideration by COP-5. The COP-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework was adopted last December at the COP-15 of the CBD, that's the Convention on Biological Diversity that took place in Montreal. It's regarded as the most relevant agreement, international agreement regarding biodiversity, regarding biodiversity of the decade, if not of all times. The Secretariat prepared one document, it's document 5/20, that's composed of section 1 with a brief introduction. Section 2 provides an overview of the GBF, including mechanisms for monitoring progress, as well as cooperation, national implementation, and reporting, among other things, as well as funding. That's a very important component. Section 3 of the document identifies opportunities for enhancing the mutually supportive implementation of the Minamata Convention and the GBF. One thing that we noticed early when we undertook this study, again, I would like to acknowledge the financial contribution of Norway for this study. We noticed that it was not just a matter of the Minamata Convention contributing to the implementation of the GBF, but by doing so, there are several entry points where the implementation of the GBF, the Global Biodiversity Framework, will also contribute to the objectives of the convention. So this was very important, and it's section 4 of the document also provides a set of proposed actions. The Annex 1 contains a draft decision, and the Annex 2 contains examples on how to generate, how co-benefits could possibly be generated through coherent implementation of the Minamata Convention and the COP-Montreal Biodiversity Framework. That's not to say that it will deviate from anything that's already been done, but it's just a matter of demonstrating and reporting as well. So the next slide, please, if I could. There is a proposed draft decision that the COP may wish to consider, and the main elements encouraging parties and other stakeholders as appropriate to integrate Mercury action into projects developed under the biodiversity focal area, as well as in the integrated programs of the Trust Fund. One integrated program here that comes to mind, for example, is the forest biomes, as well as through the new Global Biodiversity Framework Fund. This is a fund that was adopted formally last week in Vancouver, and it is likely to provide $200 million for implementation, additional implementation of the Global Biodiversity Framework for elements that could not be funded through the biodiversity focal area. Another element would be to promote research on the impacts of mercury on biodiversity, because these are still an emerging area of research, and more we need to improve our understanding. Another element is to reflect national mercury reduction and control targets in the revised national biodiversity strategies and action plans. This is a very, very important point in trying to improve that coherence between the implementation of the Minamata Convention and the GBF. So if there are any biodiversity experts here who are involved in the revision of the NBSAPs, this would be a tremendous opportunity to bridge that gap between the implementation of the convention and the GBF. Another element is to share the experience gaining gained in promoting coordination and integration, so related to the previous item. One element of the draft decision is also an invitation to the ad hoc technical expert group on indicators for the GBF to include under target 7, which is the target on pollution, an indicator related to highly hazardous chemicals. The target 7 is the main obvious entry point for cooperation and a contribution, mutual contribution, but the indicators for that target so far do not include anything related to, that could be an entry point for monitoring progress in relation to mercury action, because it's focused primarily on pesticides and other agricultural chemicals. Finally, there are a set of requests, draft requests for the Secretariat, and they are to continue supporting the relevant processes to improve coherence among MEAs, to support parties in sharing their experience and to compile and synthesize the information gathered, and to prepare a draft roadmap that could support parties in maximizing the co-benefits arising from the implementation of the Minamata Convention and the GBF. Maybe we could have a stop here to ask, and for me to ask if you have any questions on the documents under this agenda item. I don't see any hands raised, so perhaps we can continue, and I would like to invite my colleague Irene to present the next slides. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Manuela. And good afternoon, everyone. Good morning or good evening. Hello to all participants. My name is Irene Rizza, and I'm the Junior Professional Officer at the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention on Mercury. And I will present document 5/14 on capacity building, technical assistance, and technology transfer. And this is a topic under agenda item 4H. On the left side of the slide, you can see that besides document 5/14, we have additional relevant documents, and these are the INF 32, the report of the Global Mercury Partnership, and the INF 7 on lessons learned from technology transfer activities in the Planet Gold Phase 1 projects. But moving to document 5/14, this slide focuses on this document. You can see on the right-hand side of the slide that paragraph 4 of Article 14 calls on the COP to consider on a regular basis information on existing initiatives and progress made in relation to alternative technologies, and consider the needs of parties, particularly developing country parties for alternative technologies, and identify challenges experienced by parties, particularly, again, developing country parties in technology transfer. So this document provides information on existing initiatives and the needs of parties related to alternative technologies, and also proposes some additional work that could be conducted by the Secretariat so that the COP can consider a full set of information at its COP-6, at the 6th meeting. And the document also provides information about the Secretariat activities related to capacity building, technical assistance, and technology transfer, and considerations regarding how this could be undertaken and increased in the next biennium. And in the next slide, you will see Annex 1 of the document that contains a draft decision for consideration of the COP. And this is a snapshot of the draft decision. So you can see that the COP may wish to consider this draft decision and request the Secretariat, subject to the provision of resources, to compile a desk study on initiatives and progress made in relation to alternative technologies and needs and challenges of parties for its consideration at the 6th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, COP-6. And second, call for and/or encourage further cooperation on capacity building, including as per the recommendations of the ICC, Implementation and Compliance Committee, that presented Lara, my colleague, earlier today. And then the request the Secretariat to continue and enhance its cooperation with the UNEP Global Mercury Partnership. I will pause here to see if there are any questions related to this document. I don't see any hands, and I will check the chat. I believe there are no questions in the chat, so I can hand over to my colleague Anna for the next document. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Irene. Hello, everyone. I'm Ana Garcia Sanz. I'm the Communications and Knowledge Management Officer at the Minamata Convention. Secretariat and I will present here today our new agenda item on knowledge management for N. As a quick background, if you recall, at COP-4, the Secretariat introduced a new activity in the program of work and budget for the current biennium 2022-2023 on digital strategy as a way to start like seizing activities that were undertaken by the Secretariat in this regard. And now COP-5, the Secretariat will present one working document on the matter, document 519, with an overview on the progress made so far by the Secretariat on knowledge management, a digital strategy with a midterm vision to guide the work of the Secretariat, and a draft decision on the matter. This strategy is in line with different existing strategies that, like the UNEA Resolution 423, the UN Secretary General Data Strategy, and the Roadmap for Digital Cooperation, and also is in line with the UN midterm program on digital transformation. And it seeks to accelerate the momentum that has already been achieved by the Secretariat, its partners, and to expand and strengthen the services the Secretariat provides, and to promote digital transformation and capacities to improve the way the Secretariat supports its parties and other stakeholders. It is organized in three main areas. One on digital ecosystem, and you will see once the document is uploaded on the website that this part is more related to the tools that already exist and others that the Secretary is proposing to embrace this strategy, like the website, COP digital services, information exchange platform, and others that you will find soon on the website. The second section on the strategy is about building partnerships and digital literacy. And the third one is to strengthen governance and innovation based on existing standards, as standards on privacy, transparency, and accessibility and inclusiveness. No leave one behind. Accompanying this document, you will also find an information document in 26, which provides all the information on progress regarding knowledge management and digitalization already achieved by the Secretariat since it came into force until now, and with the same organization as it has been structured, the digital strategy to keep the same order. In line with this new proposed agenda item, the Secretariat is organizing a COP-5 side event online on the topic with other MEAs, more focus on projects, impact, and visibility through knowledge-driven and capacity building. If we move then to the next slide, you will see the proposed action for the COP that the COP may wish to consider the draft decision included in document 519 and adopt the digital strategy. So the COP may note the digital strategy for the Minamata Convention Secretariat to guide the work in the upcoming years in leveraging technology and managing knowledge effectively to support the implementation of the convention. The COP may also agree that this implementation of the strategy should begin in accordance to the program of work and budget for the upcoming biennium. And the COP may also request the Secretariat to continue collaborating with the Secretariats of other MEAs and relevant partners, including Informea, in this area of knowledge management, digitalization, and information exchange. Before I move to the questions, you can see in this slide that there's been highlighted some of the outcomes in knowledge management that the Secretariat has achieved in 2023, where the team started in developing and designing some dashboards. One that you probably already are familiar with is the one on national reporting, performance, and quantitative responses drawn from the online reporting tool 2021 cycle. And many of the graphs that you will see on the reporting, national reporting documents are being extracted from the dashboard. The dashboard is available, of course, on the convention's website. And also the Secretariat has embarked on other data visualization more related to capacity building and technical assistance through the retooling and the design of the project database. This is also like live on the website. So we have been able, and we are the first MEA to harvest automatically from the JEF public website the projects funded regarding the Minamata Convention, and they are in a new project database and also in a dashboard, in an interactive dashboard. And now the Secretariat is working developing a similar approach with a specific international program that will be released quite soon. So I will stop here and see if there are any questions regarding this new agenda item on knowledge management. Let me see, I cannot see any hand raised, and I'm also checking the chat. Thanks for my colleague Shariful for sharing the link of the dashboard. But if I don't see any questions, I appreciate your attention, and I will hand over to my colleague Lara again. Back to you, Lara.
Thank you, Anna. Hello again, everyone. I'm Lara Ognibene. I'm the legal officer, but I'm also the gender focal point for the Minamata Convention Secretariat. So I would like to introduce to you the document 5/18 on mainstreaming gender. This document was prepared based on a request from COP-4 in decision 4/10 to develop a gender action plan for the convention during this biennium 2022-2023. And the document 18 provides an overview of the process that led to the preparation of such gender action plan by the Secretariat. Thanks to the general financial support of Sweden, the Secretariat prepared a draft action plan and also organized 2 online consultations for parties and other stakeholders between September and October last year to present and receive inputs on the draft. A call for nomination has also been sent out by the Secretariat to participate to this consultative process in August last year. And 23 representatives were nominated by parties to participate in the consultative process. And then also the Secretariat welcomed and added additional comments received by parties in writing to the text of the Gender Action Plan. The Gender Action Plan, which incorporates all these comments received by the Secretariat, is presented in document INF document 10 titled Gender Action Plan. Next slide. So the Gender Action Plan provides a comprehensive blueprint for actions to promote gender equality under all activities undertaken under the Minamata Convention. It is organized around actions proposed for the Secretariat, but also for parties and other stakeholders. And we have followed an approach to operationalize this gender action plan, which is to identify a list of activities within the action plan that could be carried out during each biennium, and we would like to integrate these activities as appropriate in the program of work and budget to be adopted by the COP. So based on the Gender Action Plan, the Secretariat identified a set of activities that could be carried out both by the Secretariat and the parties during the next biennium 2024-2025 for consideration by COP-5. You will find a list of these activities in Annex 1 to document 18. Next slide, please. In document 18, you will also find a suggested action, which contains a draft decision for consideration by the COP. The draft decision includes some elements, such as to welcome the Gender Action Plan, to invite parties and the Secretariat to carry out activities during the next biennium, and also a request to the Secretariat to review the implementation of the plan during the intersessional period and propose new activities for the following biennium 2026-2027 based on the Gender Action Plan. I'll stop here in case there are any questions on this agenda item. I don't see any hands raised. I don't see any questions on this particular agenda item. I will respond to the other comment in the chat. If there are no hands raised, I would like to then move to the next agenda item, which is item 3 of the provisional agenda for COP-5, rules of procedure. The relevant document here is document 2, titled Rules of Procedure for the Conference of the Parties. Consideration of Rule 45. So this is a legacy issue, COP1 adopted decision MC1/1, which contains its rules of procedure, with the exception of the second sentence of paragraph 1 of Rule 45 and paragraph 3 of Rule 45, which remains in brackets, so are still to be cleared. So the bracketed text remaining in paragraph 1 relates to the option to take a decision on matters of substance by means of voting, should all efforts to reach consensus fail. While the bracketed text in paragraph 3 of Rule 45 relates to the mechanism used to decide whether a matter before the COP should be considered as a matter of substance or a matter of procedure. And COP4 agreed to defer this decision on the bracketed text to COP5 for further consideration. Next slide, please. So the draft decision contained in this document for consideration by COP5 is to decide whether to remove the brackets in Rule 45. Are there any questions on this document? I see a question on availability of documents. We will respond to that in the chat. And then I don't see any hands. I would like to move on to the next agenda item. This is agenda item on venue and dates of COP6. Agenda item 7 of the provisional agenda. The relevant document is document 24 with the same title. So the document provides information on the decision on the venue and dates for the next meeting of the COP after COP6. So as a rule, as per the convention's text and rules of procedure, the meeting of the COP shall take place at the seat of the Secretariat, which is Geneva, obviously, unless the COP decides otherwise. The Secretariat has invited parties to submit offers to host COP6 for consideration during COP-5. As of today, no such offer was received. In case no offers to host COP6 are received, the Secretariat has tentatively booked the International Conference Center of Geneva, ICG, for the period from the 3rd to the 7th of November 2025, with preparatory meetings to be held on the 2nd of November 2025. Also, the document includes the possibility to agree on specific arrangements for preparing organizing a high-level segment at COP6. Apologies, next slide, please. So the draft decision that is contained in the document includes the following items. So the COP may decide the dates and the venue of COP6 in 2025, and also may decide to invite parties to submit offers to host COP7, preferably 3 months in advance before the opening of COP6. Let me stop here and see if there's any question or hand raised. Don't see any. So I would like to move to the next agenda item, which is on Minamata Online. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all the presenters, and thanks to our participants here today. As we wrap up, we still have some time for questions, either in the chat or by raising your hand. But I do want to repeat some information about where you can get more information. So today's briefing, as well as its companion briefing tomorrow, are part of our Minamata Online series, and we're now in season 3 of Minamata Online. Minamata Online also includes 2 other sort of streams of information aside from COP-related information. One is on implementation and support, implementation review and support, and the presentations under that agenda item range from those that give a very basic overview of the obligations contained in various convention articles to more in-depth topical presentations. And then we also have a science stream, which provides really great in-depth information on not only on the science policy interface, but on the research and the various activities going on to advance our understanding and our data on Mercury globally. So those are all available on our website. And again, these also are available on the Minamata Convention YouTube channel. But if you go to our website, you can search for the particular Minamata online session, and you can also see the slide decks for those. But upcoming, we have, after tomorrow's second part of the document briefings, then there will be the deep dive information sessions on national reporting, on ASGM, on effectiveness evaluation, and on financial resources and mechanism. And then for parties only, there will be a deep dive information session on program of work and budget. And that's towards the end of the period in which our online budget forum is open and available to parties. And then in our next slide, I just want to give you a snapshot of the online side events. So during the week of 9 October, these side events will take place It's a very busy schedule. We had a lot of great submissions for side event proposals, so we have sorted them out as best we could, and we hope you will like them, and we hope you tune in. There will be a lot of great information shared in these online side events. We have found that the online pre-COP side event formulation works quite well because in general, people are more available time-wise to tune in to these than when they are busy negotiating various provisions at the COP. And it also allows for a fuller audience because it can include even those who are not registered for the COP. So we hope you take advantage of those. Let me check again on the participant list. Let's see if we have any raised hands, and in the chat. Think that we are doing quite well. Colleague says, anything in the chat not been answered yet? Yeah, we'll get more information out to people. I believe you have the links to where you can go to register for the various Minamata online sessions. So I'll just give it a couple of more minutes in case there are any additional questions. We do have one raised hand. It's from Claudia Dumitru.
Yes, thank you very much, Marianne. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us.
Excellent. Of course, I will not miss one of your actions. So first of all, I would like to thank the Secretariat for preparing this event. I think it's very useful for all the parties. And I would also like to extend my congratulations to Ukraine, that is the newest party of the convention. And of course, we know the situation that they are facing, and they made this progress. And if they made it, I think it's possible for everybody. So I'm still encouraging the rest of the countries to accelerate the process to become a party and to have a strong convention. But just to say from my personal view, I think we were the youngest and the fastest convention, so we are keeping up with the traditional ones, and I can't wait to have the COP, and I'm 100% confident that we will have a very successful COP, and I'm counting on every party to support the president and also the Secretariat to have a very nice, fruitful meeting in Geneva. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Claudia, for joining us and for giving us those important words. For any of you who are tuned in and do not know, Claudia Dumitru is the president of COP-5. She is providing the leadership for this COP, and we're really looking forward to being on the ground with you, Claudia, at COP-5. And we are also really looking forward to universal membership because our number of parties is increasing so rapidly and constantly. We're so encouraged by this, and we are very hopeful for a universal membership in the near future. So thank you so much. And with that, I believe we do not have any other questions. Yes, the slides will be posted online and on the Minamata Convention YouTube channel. And I'll do one last check for any raised hands. And with that, I believe we can close. Thank you so much for joining, for your time and attention to these documents. Keep checking the COP-5 website, and I do hope you can tune in to tomorrow's session as well. Thank you all.